Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Recruiter Table Talk. My name is JT O'Donnell, the founder and CEO of Work It Daily and the host of today's session. Today, we are going to be talking about how to avoid a recruiting summer slump. So in case you haven't noticed, summer is upon us. And this is a time where a lot of candidates, a lot of talent go on well-earned vacations, as do a lot of hiring managers and key people in the hiring process. So historically, we see situations where recruiting can really slow down or feel like it's slowing down because of these moving targets. But I'm not the expert on this. I actually have a team of experts on this subject today that's going to help you with this. So let me bring them up to the stage. These are the wonderful women from the Duffy Group. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Hello.
So good to have you here. So, Kristen, I'm going to pick on you first because I know you're going to get into it and share with everybody, really expand on this subject and start us off.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, JT. Summer recruiting really can be successful and not a slump for you. As long as you have a good strategy, organization, communication foundation. So if you're spending the amount of time with the hiring manager at the beginning of the search to really understand the role, the timeline, the budget, and really the potential hurdles, you're not going to miss that critical information about the role, in case they go on vacation week 2 after the search starts, and then you're scrambling for those details. Another really great tip would be to make sure that you have access to the hiring manager's calendar. By doing that, you're able to set the interviews on their calendar. You can also set up reminders for those calendar invites. And then you're also including everyone that needs to be on the call and determining where the location might be. If it's a Zoom call, you're putting the Zoom link in there. You're adding all that pertinent information if it's in person, directions on how to get there. And I always like to include the resume for the candidate. So everything's all in one email. The email is going to send reminders so people aren't missing the meeting as well. So I think really taking technology on your side and using that to move things along as quickly as possible. Also, it's really good idea just to know when everyone's going on vacation. Whenever we talk to our candidates, we always say, what's coming up in the next couple of months for you that we might need to let our client know about. And that might even be, after the start date that they did have vacation plans. But really during that recruiting process, it's important to have that synced up, maybe put together a calendar so when's going to be the right time to set up these interviews. A couple of other
So, yeah. Kristen, what I'm hearing you say is that it's really important to make sure that calendar is laid out and that you're crossing the T's and dotting the I's and reminding people of these things, because in summertime, it really can slip their mind, right? Busy summer schedules, staying on top of it. Also, I think it must really make you stand out as a recruiting professional compared to some of the others that aren't, going through these motions and letting things slip through the cracks, which I think is wonderful. So let's jump over to Sharon. Sharon, let's talk a little bit more about your thoughts on this process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Kristen, I just got a tip or two there from you. So thank you. So we all love the summer, right? Kids are off from school and it's time to go on those vacations that were planned during the winter months. And I think anyway, we all tend to be happier when it's warmer, the sun is shining every day, we're spending more time outside, days are longer. So our day-to-day schedules become more relaxed. But what does this mean for the job market? Do companies slow down and pause on their hiring? And do candidates stop looking? And I think, over the years, there's this assumption that all that is true, that things just stop. It's really not. So here are some things to think about as you continue hiring, because the job market is still tight. It's really hard still finding the right candidate. And if you're looking for a new opportunity for yourself, so here are some of my tips. So people can be easier to reach and may have more time to communicate freely. So this is actually a very good time to recruit someone, get their attention and schedule a call. One time, and this wasn't that long ago, I had someone answer their phone and they were on the beach in Hawaii. And we had a great conversation. It was very helpful. And we were able to start the process actually with his search. So fast-paced and deadline-driven environments tend to ease. And this can allow opportunities for more flexibility if you're looking for a new opportunity. So fewer demands in your current job can give you more time to interview and also help you prepare, which are both key. And more candidates can be open to changing jobs. So look at this as the vacations give you that opportunity. We're away from the day to day, and now we can evaluate our current job and career path. Are we in that right job and career path? Is there a career path? Has anything changed in our leadership, the culture, staffing? Have you been requested to come back into the office? Have any of these things, maybe they've got you rethinking? And relocation. So relocating in the summer tends to be easier for family with kids. And start the interview process early. Plan for those delays and adjustments that may come up because of vacation schedules. So I say let's keep that hiring momentum going during these summer months. There's no need for the hiring to go on vacation. And if you work together, put together a strategy to hire those candidates that you've been trying to recruit all year long, chances are they will have more flexibility to talk to you, and they may have a better understanding now of what it is they're looking for because they have more time to think and rethink.
I love it. Okay. So as you were saying that, Sharon, I was thinking as a coach, and I coach a lot of candidates at all levels, I was thinking of how many times they come back to me and say, I just got back from vacation. I ended up having the strangest call on my trip. Or, a company messaged me and I would normally just delete it, but I was sitting there and I had some time. So I actually went down the rabbit hole and and it's a viable opportunity. Do you see what I'm saying? Your point is so spot on about candidates breathing a bit more, and you might have that chance to capture their attention. I love that thought process, that mindset. Wonderful stuff. Okay, moving on. Colleen, share more. What are your thoughts on this?
Sure. Well, thank you, JT, and I agree, Sharon. Those were fantastic tips. Thank you for that. Well, as the saying goes, timing is everything, and in our line of work, recruiting, that is absolutely the case. When it comes to hiring for critical positions, any positions, there's really, three main things that you're looking at: technical skills, soft skills, and then timing, because it doesn't matter how good a fit a candidate is for a position. If the timing's not right, then it's a moot point. And so what we've noticed at Duffy Group, because we do serve all industries, and because of that, that wide lens that we have been able to recognize that there are just certain industries where, keeping in mind the timing and summer is more important than, some others. So for example, I would say the education industry is certainly one that, it makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about, both, higher ed. We even work with a lot of nonprofits that are tied with, secondary education. And it is always really important to make sure that candidates are starting those new jobs at the beginning of the school year. And so therefore, the summer is a good time to make sure that you're doing that recruitment so you get that position filled before the fall. And, there's also, the reminder, we do work across the US, but we also do work internationally. And we know that, many European companies, they will shut down for quite a while. And so you need to keep in mind that timing and recruit early for those August openings. So that's something to keep in mind. And I'll certainly reiterate what Sharon just touched on, and that is that when you are doing a search for a position that requires relocation, it is really great to be able to relocate during the summer months, especially for families. Those candidates that have families that are in school, That is so important to them to not disrupt their school year. And so that timing is just really critical and, in fact, a good time to be able to recruit those candidates.
Fantastic feedback. It's so true. I think you're really bringing up some things that people don't think about. All these upsides to recruiting in the summer, and it reminds me of the real estate market. All the houses go on the market in the beginning of the summer, so people can get to their new location with their kids by the end of the season. Makes so much sense. Kathleen, as the founder and CEO of the Duffy Group, I know that you have a lot to say on this, thoughts on this, because you believe recruiting should be happening year round. So tell us a little bit more on your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think Sharon and Colleen really hit on it in terms of the relocation and thinking about it from a family perspective. And so, I lived this life. When I grew up, my father was relocated, 6 or 7 times before we hit our final destination here in Phoenix. And that's how I ended up at Arizona State University and really starting my career here. But, when I was young, that moving was a real adventure. But this final move was my senior year of high school. And, I'd already made college decisions. My brother was in high school and my sister was in grade school. And so that move could have been a huge traumatic experience for our family and a deal breaker for that company that was recruiting my dad if they didn't include us in the process. So that's what my recommendation is. You got to include the entire family in this conversation. It's not just the candidate. I think if there's anything that we have learned over the pandemic and, the recruiting frenzy is that as recruiters, we have to always be closing that candidate, right? And it's even more important when relocation is involved. And we need to recruit that spouse partner. We need to recruit those children. We really don't want to get to that offer stage. And this has happened. And they go all of a sudden, my spouse has decided that they don't want to move to fill in the blank. And it's like the day before they're supposed to start. So seriously, you haven't had that conversation yet, but shame on the recruiter who didn't initiate that conversation. So a few questions that you might want to ask, ask, how does your spouse partner, how do your children feel about moving? For children, what's their academic environment that best suits children? There's so many options now, right? And you need to make sure if a private parochial school is where they want to go, do they have those kinds of schools in the area that you're considering relocating to? Again, ask the children, ask the spouse and partner, how are they feeling about a move at this time? What are some of the extracurricular activities that they're involved in? I remember one time, there was somebody that we were trying to recruit, and their child was a champion equestrian. And we had to do a lot of research on what were some of the horse properties that were around. And again, ask everybody, spouse, partner, children, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? So keep asking that. And then when you get to that on-site interview and you bring the family in, make sure that you, again, are recruiting the spouse, partner, and the children. So what is it that you've learned about the children? Can you introduce them to maybe some of the employees' children who are in the same grade, have the same interests, so they can start to make some friends and feel more comfortable? So, a little TLC for children, spouse, and partners goes a long way in helping to close that candidate in that critical time of considering relocation. And again, just to reiterate, summer is the best time to be able to do all of that.
That's such an interesting point. In a lot of ways, what you're describing is that recruiting can gear up, not slump, but gear up because of the opportunities you have to potentially get better talent who might not otherwise put themselves on the market. Right. It's a timing thing. Starts to really, truly that asset, that talent asset is only available certain times a year. So you've got to get on it. Amazing. Georgia, I want to jump to you last but not least for sure. What are your thoughts on this? Oh, we got you on mute, my friend.
Oh, technology is so fun, isn't it? I couldn't agree more with Kathleen, and to follow in her footsteps, as everyone said, relocation happens to be, when we're talking to candidates, usually the top three things that are hurdles for them. It's usually pay, incentives, benefits, and then relocation. How do I prepare my family for relocation? And what I wanted to just briefly touch on is, what if the destination isn't on the surface that attractive? Oftentimes when we're working with clients, that's one of the obstacles that they must overcome when they are working with candidates. And how is it that we can paint this environment where we live in a positive way to really attract the right candidate? So this courtship, as Kathleen was talking about, is exceptionally important, is to understand, and if we're doing it right, we're going to understand those top candidates' motivating factors. And we've talked about this over and over. It's a very intimate process, this engagement of recruitment, understanding the candidate, what the motivating factors are for them, their family, their children. And if we know that summer is a great time to move for obvious reasons, getting kids in schools and things like that, what are the other intangible things? I use Arizona as an example. Arizona is not the best time. It's not the best place to move in the summer. Let's just face it. They're going to face 110, sometimes 120 degrees. However, did you know, JT, that if I got in my car at 9 o'clock this morning, I could be in Sedona at 10:30. I could be seeing the Red Rocks. I could be amongst culture. I could be amongst shopping. That attracts me. But some don't know that we've got 3 state universities that are among the top universities in the U.S. Now, you could probably say that about any location. So it really is incumbent upon the hiring manager, the internal recruiters, or whoever is working and engaging with those candidates, that they are keenly aware of the motivating factors, they do their research, and they should know this going in, that this is going to be a top obstacle for candidates. And if you want to get them to the finish line, this level of service and courtship and clarity about where they're moving, what the resources are, getting them connected to the right realtor, the right schools, identifying what it is of interest to them, could get them across the finish line when the location on the surface looks less than desirable.
Amazing. Such good feedback. What I love is you've all shared the level at which you go to help get that right candidate, you said it, across the finish line. There's a lot that goes into it. It's not just finding the right person and handing it off to the hiring manager. Clearly, what you're talking about here today are the advanced skills of recruiting that recruiters should know how to do, because the hiring manager doesn't, right? That's what a company needs to do. And I really love listening to that. Folks, we are talking today about how to avoid a recruiting summer slump. We are doing that with the experts from the Duffy Group. If you have questions for them, now is the time to pop it in the chat. I also want to tell you all their names are up here for a reason. Please go find and follow them on LinkedIn. Even send them a custom connection request and invite them to connect. But tell them you saw them on RTT, Recruiting Table Talk, because they are dropping amazing pearls of wisdom through their LinkedIn feeds on a regular basis, okay? Now, while we're waiting for questions, I have a question. So you have a lot of recruiters listening to this, and they're saying, I can already see what's happening. The hiring manager has a vacation this week. Another person on the team that would have to sign off has a different one. How am I going to keep these candidates engaged in this process? How do I not lose some of my top candidates? Because no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to shorten up this cycle. What kind of advice do you have, or what tips can you provide recruiters to help manage that process? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Raise your hand. Oh, Kristen, thank you.
Right. So one of the other things I was planning on mentioning, and I'm glad you asked this question because I skipped over it, is really making sure that you have a regular meeting set up with your hiring leader. And by doing that, you know that you both are going to check in. Maybe they're not getting back to your emails, your phone calls, but you're getting regular feedback from that hiring leader. And then also asking them to make a commitment to you to get back within at least 24 hours after an interview. So that way you can find out more about how that interview went. Do we need to adjust the search a bit, tweak it? And then you're keeping that candidate engaged because you're giving them the feedback they're asking for.
I love it. Yeah, it's so vital. I keep hearing lately more and more that people are losing candidates, especially the good ones, and so keeping them on the hook with that. Other thoughts? Anybody else got any instances or suggestions on how you've maybe kept a candidate engaged, especially one that needs relocation and all of that?
Well, I'll just jump in there since we're recently dealing with a situation like this where the interview process, ended up dragging out a little bit due to vacations and an interview being rescheduled. So, I want to say there was 4 candidates, and we just had a bit of a delay because the 4th candidate had to reschedule that interview. And so what we needed to do is make sure that the other 3 candidates were aware of this change in our timing. We call it keeping them warm. And that's, pretty simple. And that's just communication. It's being very transparent to those candidates, hey, the last interview in the process is going to be on this date. Therefore, we will have answers and feedback regarding next steps on this date. And so again, everything that we do, it all just goes back to, communication is key.
I love that. I love that. What do you say to recruiters who are told, well, yes, that job is going to post, but the hiring manager says, I don't want to hire in the summer. I want to wait to the fall because I don't want to deal with the interviewing process. I want to enjoy my summer. What can you say to that? Because I personally don't think that's a good idea to hold off hiring. Any thoughts there?
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, I see you nodding your head. Like, what do you think?
Well, let's see. I'm not on mute. Yeah. In this environment, I don't think you should ever wait. I don't think that makes sense. I saw I saw my teammates doing, kind of like nodding,
Mm-hmm.
the same thing. I think if you're eager to find candidates, this is a good time to get candidates. I think it's very easy to talk to candidates about the value of moving in the summertime, as they pointed out. I think summertime is a great opportunity. As long as you're aware of the pitfalls, as we talked about, the summer slump, things to be thinking about, I think it's a great time to access candidates and get ready for the fall months. So that's just my point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. Kathleen, you're nodding. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Georgia. And I think part of it is just, educating the hiring leaders and just helping them to understand, what the consequences might be if they don't act on this now. I mean, these candidates may not be there. And, we know what the cost of a vacancy is, and it's just going to continue to skyrocket for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing I think a lot of people aren't realizing, right? All of a sudden we're back to the frenzy in the fall, and those people that, again, were only available in a window before they're back to being too busy, you've lost them. You're not going to get that best candidate.
JT, I was just thinking of another thing. We're getting almost a little, misinformation or, concept because we're hearing about these layoffs. So hiring leaders may think it's going to be okay. These candidates will still be there. They're not going to be there, which is why that, they can't wait. But yeah, we don't want to get this false sense of security that, there's going to be plenty of candidates. I can take my 3-week vacation and pick it up when they come back.
It's funny you say that. I just saw a study from LinkedIn that said in 2020, it was taking companies about 7 weeks to hire, and now that's up to 11 weeks.
Yeah.
And it is because they think that there is more talent out there and they're requiring more candidates to take a look at more candidates. And I love your point. The good ones always go.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what the market's like. The ones that you want are going to go first if you don't get on top of them. So I absolutely love that point. So let me flip it over though. If you're talent and this is the time that you want to find a job in the summer, are there any tips that you can give, candidates out there listening today and the best way to connect and get the attention of you, the recruiters, to consider them for these positions?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just maybe continue on to some of the things that I shared earlier, is that this is a great time for them to rethink and not rush putting together a cover letter and their resume, and making sure that if there's something that they're targeting and if they see, make sure that you review those cover letters and your resume. Because I've had some comments from hiring leaders or search committee members. They're like, this letter is exactly the same as their LinkedIn profile, and so when you're not putting that time and really thinking, just as a reminder, we're all looking at all the different areas of who you are. We're doing our research before we even speak to you in a lot of cases. So take advantage of this opportunity. And I would like to share one other thing, if I may, because I heard a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it was the opposite almost of what we're discussing here today. And there was a recruiter on there, and she had her own business. And she is just feeling that she's going with the herd of taking time off. So her staff, they don't work on Fridays, and they are feeling that candidates are just on vacation and taking a break too from their hiring lead. Well, if you're a go with the herd, maybe that's the way to go, but I'm more of a go against the herd in most cases. So we're working and we're busy, and there's talent out there to be found. So if the other recruiters aren't looking for them and the hiring leaders at the companies aren't, well, we will.
That's right.
I love that point, by the way. First of all, thank you for reinforcing the fact that you might all be paying more attention to what's coming across your desk. So get it right so that it stands out for the right reasons. But isn't it interesting and true? There's probably a lot of recruiters that would like to take the summer off too and sleep on this. And that's the moment, right? When a team like yours is doubling down and saying, no, we'll go find the best talent. I mean, clearly the way you were all describing it today, you can tell that you all understand how to recruit well in a summer market, but it's true. I'm sure there are a lot that are just going to sleep on it for the summer. Incredible. Incredible.
JT, can I add something?
Please, Colleen.
So I was thinking about, what Kristen shared, a lot of good feedback, in recognizing using technology and the calendars and really planning ahead. And, after this table talk, I'll be going into a meeting with a search committee, and just wanted to point out that, sometimes when you are working with a large number of decision makers and stakeholders, what we typically do in those instances, so again, this is a lot of times for C-level searches and a lot of the CEO searches that we do. If there are so many busy executives that need to be part of this interview process, and everybody has, vacations on top of their already busy calendars, what we do is we plan out, and we actually will put those interview dates on the calendar, months in advance, because we have a timeline when we are doing a recruitment process, and we've got goals that we're working towards. And so we have found that by, getting that on the calendar and then recruiting to meet those deadlines has really been helpful, especially with these crazy summer months and busy schedules.
I love that. So true, especially with a big group, right? That herding cats thing. Get all figured out. It's so true. It's so true. Kathleen, I'm going to pass it back to you, because I don't know where 30 minutes goes with you women, but it goes way too fast. So final thoughts for today. What do you want all the listeners to keep in mind?
So I think that it's, if you snooze, you lose, right? And it's still a very competitive market out there, and you just have to continue to be out there. The other piece is to, make sure you're always closing. Ask the questions. Is everybody on board? How are they feeling? Talk to the spouse and partner too. And then, of course, talk up the area. As Georgia said about relocation to Arizona, a lot of people have just one perception of it, that it's really hot here. And it is. But we have 3 different climates in Arizona. And so we have a beautiful state and economic development to be able to sell here. And so that's what we try to do with all of our clients, no matter where they're living.
I love that. I just love that you take a very holistic approach to recruiting at the Duffy Group. It's really clear the depth that you go into, making sure that you're getting the right candidate and getting them, happy and staying. I think of how many times the recruitment process isn't as thorough as you're describing, and somebody ends up unhappy, whether it's the employer or even the candidate, the talent. But in this case, clearly the match is being made when you go through the steps that you're all talking about. So amazing discussion today, folks. I'm going to just post them up there one more time. Please go find Georgia and Sharon and Colleen and Kristen and Kathleen on LinkedIn. They are all members of the Duffy Group. It's an incredible organization. I want you to find them. I want you to follow them. I want you to customize a connection request and give them a shout out, okay? And of course, they'll be back here next month with an incredible recruiting topic. So be sure to check out the calendar as well. Ladies, thank you for your time as always. So helpful, so interesting. And of course, folks, remember, if you want to win, you've got to work it daily. So you better follow us as well so that we can keep you in touch. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great summer.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.